The warning klaxons shrieked through the bridge of the UES Meridian as Commander Sarah Chen gripped the tactical display. Red dots scattered across the holographic map like drops of blood, each one representing a dragon warship that had torn through the outer colonies just hours before. "Ma'am, we're detecting debris field at coordinates 77 Mark 4, Lieutenant Morrison called from his station. "Looks like the aftermath of a major engagement." Sarah's jaw tightened. 3 colonies had gone dark in the past week. The dragons had been more aggressive lately, pushing deeper into human space than ever before. Each attack left nothing but ash and silence behind. "Take us in, but keep weapons hot," she ordered. "If there's even one dragon ship still operational." The Meridian's engines hummed as they approached the debris field. Twisted metal drifted in the void, some pieces still glowing from recent explosions. Sarah had seen enough battlefields to recognize the carnage, but something felt different about this one. "Commander," Ensign Patel's voice cracked slightly. "I'm reading a faint distress beacon. It's coming from a dragon vessel." Every officer on the bridge turned to stare. Dragons didn't send distress signals. They fought until their ships exploded or they died trying. The idea of a dragon calling for help went against everything they knew about their enemy. "Are you certain?" Sarah asked. "Yes, ma'am. The signal is weak but definitely dragon in origin. The ship appears to be heavily damaged but still has minimal life support." Sarah stared at the tactical display. Standard protocol was clear when it came to dragons. No prisoners, no mercy, no exceptions. The aliens had earned that policy through decades of brutal warfare, attacking human settlements without warning or provocation. "Ma'am," Morrison waited for orders. "Maintain safe distance," Sarah said finally. "Run a full scan. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we make any moves." The minutes stretched as the ship's sensors probed the damaged dragon vessel. Sarah had fought dragons before, had seen the aftermath of their attacks. They were massive beings, nearly 3 meters tall with natural armor plating and claws that could tear through steel. Their ships were technological marvels that outclassed human vessels in almost every category. "Scan complete," Patel announced. "I'm detecting one life sign aboard the dragon ship. It's strange." "Define strange, Ensign." "The biosignature is definitely dragon, but it's much smaller than typical readings. Maybe a quarter the size of an adult dragon." Lieutenant Morrison leaned forward. "Could be injured, ma'am. Internal damage might affect the readings." Sarah studied the data flowing across her screen. Something about this situation felt wrong, but she couldn't pinpoint what. The dragon ship was clearly dying, its power systems failing one by one. Whatever was aboard would be dead within hours. "Commander," Dr. Martinez's voice came through the comm system. "I've been monitoring the medical scans. That life sign isn't from an injured adult dragon." "Explain." "The bone density, organ development, neural activity patterns." "Commander, that's a child. A dragon child." The bridge fell silent. Sarah felt her chest tighten as the implications hit her. A dragon child meant parents who had died protecting it. It meant a species that cared for their young just like humans did. "That doesn't change anything," Morrison said quietly. "Orders are orders, ma'am." Sarah knew he was right. The mandate was clear about dragons. Every human in the military had memorized it word for word. Dragons were to be eliminated on sight without exception. The policy had saved countless human lives over the years. But standing there, staring at the readings from a dying child, Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. "Dr. Martinez, how long does that child have?" "Based on the failing life support, maybe 2 hours, 3 at the most." "Could we save it?" The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Sarah could feel her officers staring at her, could almost hear their thoughts. No one spoke for several seconds. "Theoretically, yes," Dr. Martinez replied carefully. "But Commander." "I know the protocols, Doctor. I'm asking if it's medically possible." "Yes, ma'am. It would require immediate extraction and intensive care, but yes." Sarah closed her eyes and thought about her daughter Emma, safe on Earth but the same age this dragon child appeared to be. She thought about the colonies that had been destroyed, the families torn apart by war. She thought about duty and protocol and the chain of command. Then she thought about a child dying alone in the dark. "Morrison, prep a boarding party, medical equipment and emergency life support." Ma'am, Morrison's voice carried a warning. The mandate clearly states. I know what it states, Lieutenant. Sarah's voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded ships for 15 years. But I also know that child didn't kill anyone. It hasn't destroyed any colonies. Right now, it's just a scared kid who's about to die. With respect, Commander, it's a dragon. When it grows up. If it grows up, we'll deal with that then. Right now, I'm making a choice about who I am as a human being. The boarding party launched 20 minutes later. Sarah led it herself, something that made Morrison even more nervous. As they approached the dragon ship, she could see the extent of the damage. Whatever had happened here, it had been catastrophic. The ship's interior was a maze of twisted metal and emergency lighting. The air was thin but breathable, though it carried the metallic scent of recent violence. Bodies of adult dragons lay scattered through the corridors, their massive forms still intimidating even in death. This way, Dr. Martinez called, following her medical scanner. The life sign is coming from what looks like a protected chamber. They found the dragon child in what appeared to be a nursery. The room had taken less damage than the rest of the ship, with emergency barriers that had held against the worst of the destruction. The child lay in something that resembled a crib, though built for a much larger species. Sarah's breath caught. The young dragon was beautiful in a way she hadn't expected. Its scales shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting from deep green to silver as the light hit them. It was roughly the size of a human 5-year-old, but clearly much younger based on its proportions. The child's eyes opened as they approached, and Sarah saw intelligence there, along with fear and confusion. It made a soft sound, almost like a whimper. Its parents probably hid it here when the attack began, Dr. Martinez observed, running her scanner over the small form. Vital signs are weak but stable. We can move it safely. Do it, Sarah ordered. As Dr. Martinez prepared the emergency medical pod, Sarah knelt beside the dragon child. It watched her with large, dark eyes that seemed far too old for such a young face. When she reached out slowly, the child didn't recoil. Instead, one small, clawed hand grasped her finger with surprising gentleness. Ma'am, Morrison's voice was urgent through the comm. We need to move. I'm detecting an approaching patrol fleet. Human vessels, but they'll be here within the hour. Sarah understood the implication. If another human ship found them here with a live dragon, there would be questions she couldn't answer. The mandate left no room for interpretation. Get us back to the Meridian, she ordered. Maximum burn once we're aboard. As they carried the dragon child back to their ship, Sarah's mind raced through the consequences of what she was doing. She was violating direct orders, risking her career and her crew's safety. If discovered, she would face court-martial and probably execution for treason. But looking down at the small being in the medical pod, she found she didn't care. Back aboard the Meridian, Dr. Martinez set up an isolated medical bay for their unusual patient. The dragon child responded well to treatment, its vital signs strengthening as the ship's medical systems compensated for the failing life support it had endured. Where do we go from here, Commander? Morrison asked as they stood outside the medical bay. Sarah watched through the observation window as the dragon child slept peacefully, no longer fighting for each breath. I don't know yet, she admitted, but that child is under my protection now. The moment Command finds out. Command isn't going to find out, Sarah interrupted. Not yet, anyway. We need time to figure this out. You're talking about hiding a dragon from military intelligence. They'll hunt us to the ends of the galaxy. Sarah met his gaze. Then we better make sure they don't find us. As the Meridian jumped to hyperspace, carrying its secret cargo away from the battle zone, Sarah made a decision that would change the course of the war and challenge everything humanity thought they knew about their enemies. She had chosen compassion over orders, love over duty. Now she had to live with the consequences. The dragon child slept on, unaware that its life had just become the center of a storm that would shake the foundations of 2 civilizations. In her dreams, the young one saw images of her parents' last moments, their desperate fight to protect her from enemies who showed no mercy. But she also saw something else, something that would give her hope in the dark days ahead. She saw the kind eyes of the human who had chosen to save her life, and in that choice, the first seed of a new future began to grow. 3 weeks after the rescue, Sarah stood in the observation deck of Research Station Echo 7, watching the dragon child play in the specially constructed habitat Dr. Martinez had designed. The child had grown stronger each day, her scales brightening and her movements becoming more coordinated. Sarah had started thinking of her as Zara, a name that seemed to fit her gentle nature. "She's learning faster than any human child I've ever observed," Dr. Martinez reported, updating her medical logs. "Her neural development is remarkable. Yesterday, she figured out how to operate the environmental controls just by watching me do it once." Sarah smiled as Zara carefully arranged a collection of colored blocks, creating patterns that were mathematically precise and surprisingly beautiful. The child had shown an intuitive understanding of complex concepts that amazed the research team. "Any word from command?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Nothing specific. They think we're conducting routine deep space reconnaissance. The station's records show standard research activities." Sarah had spent considerable effort falsifying their mission reports, something that made her stomach twist with guilt every time she transmitted them. Echo 7 was perfect for their needs. Officially, it was a long-term xenobiology research facility studying non-sentient alien life forms. In reality, it had become a sanctuary for the most dangerous secret in human space. "Commander," Lieutenant Morrison's voice came through the comm system. "We have a problem. Admiral Reeves is requesting a live conference call in 30 minutes. He says it's urgent." Sarah felt ice form in her chest. Admiral Reeves was the head of military intelligence, the man responsible for implementing the Dragon Mandate. If he was calling personally, it meant someone suspected something. "Acknowledged. I'll take it in my quarters." As Sarah made her way through the station's corridors, she passed the concealed entrance to Zara's habitat. The child had been living in a specially constructed environment that appeared to be just another research lab on the station's schematics. To any inspector, it looked like they were studying the life cycle of andromed and fungal spores. In her quarters, Sarah activated the secure communication array and waited. Admiral Reeves appeared on her screen exactly on schedule, his weathered face showing the strain of running a galaxy-wide war. "Commander Chen," he began without preamble, "I need to ask you some questions about your current mission." "Of course, sir." 3 weeks ago, your ship investigated a debris field in the Kepler sector. Your report mentioned finding only destroyed Dragon vessels with no survivors. Sarah kept her expression neutral. "That's correct, Admiral. The engagement appeared to be between Dragon forces and unknown attackers. Both sides suffered total casualties." "Unknown attackers," Reeves leaned forward. "Your report didn't mention analyzing the weapons' signatures or attempting to identify the other combatants." Sarah's mouth went dry. She had deliberately kept that detail vague, hoping to avoid further investigation. "The damage patterns were inconclusive, sir. Could have been internal weapons malfunction or possibly another Dragon faction." Reeves studied her for several long seconds. "Commander, I'm going to share something with you that's classified at the highest levels. We've received intelligence suggesting that some dragons may be attempting to infiltrate human space using unusual methods. There are reports of dragon ships broadcasting distress signals to lure human vessels into traps." "I see," Sarah fought to keep her voice steady. "If you encountered anything unusual during that investigation, anything at all, I need to know about it immediately." Sarah looked directly into the camera, knowing her career and possibly her life hung on her next words. "Nothing unusual, sir. Standard post-battle debris field. We conducted thorough scans and found no active threats." Reeves nodded slowly. "Very well. Continue your current research mission, but I want daily reports on any anomalous readings or discoveries. The Dragon threat has evolved, Commander. We can't afford to let our guard down." "Understood, Admiral." After the connection ended, Sarah sat in silence for several minutes. The walls felt like they were closing in around her. Every day she kept Zara secret, the risk grew larger. But every day she spent with the child, the more convinced she became that she was doing the right thing. A soft chime from her door broke her contemplation. "Come in." Dr. Martinez entered, carrying a data pad with obvious excitement. "You need to see this, Sarah. Zara's latest cognitive assessments are off the charts." "Show me." The doctor activated her pad, displaying a series of test results. "We've been giving her problems designed for adult humans, and she's solving them in minutes. But more than that, she's creating her own puzzles and games that are mathematically elegant beyond anything I've seen. Sarah studied the data. What are you saying? I think Dragon intelligence operates on a completely different level than ours. Not necessarily better or worse, but fundamentally different. Their brains seem to process information in ways that allow for incredible pattern recognition and spatial reasoning. That could explain their technological advantages. Exactly, but here's the thing that really amazes me. Dr. Martinez pulled up a video file. Watch this. The recording showed Zara in her habitat, playing with a damaged mechanical toy that one of the research assistants had brought her. The toy's movements were jerky and unpredictable due to a faulty circuit. Sarah watched as the child carefully examined the device, then began manipulating its internal components with remarkable precision. She fixed it, Dr. Martinez explained. But more than that, she improved it. The toy now moves more smoothly and efficiently than when it was new. She's 6 weeks old, Sarah said in wonder. How is that possible? Dragon neural development appears to be exponentially faster than human. By the time she's a year old, she might have cognitive abilities equivalent to an adult human. By the time she's 5. She could be smarter than any human who ever lived. Dr. Martinez nodded. Which brings us to a difficult question. What do we do with this information? Before Sarah could answer, the station's alert klaxons began blaring. Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system. Commander to the bridge immediately. We have incoming ships. Sarah ran through the corridors, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. When she reached the command center, Morrison was hunched over the sensor array with obvious concern. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, he reported. Human vessels, military configuration. They're transmitting proper identification codes. Who is it? The UES Defiance, UES Retribution, and UES Vengeance. All Intelligence Division ships. Sarah's heart sank. Intelligence Division meant investigators, people trained to find secrets and uncover lies. What's their stated purpose? Routine inspection and crew rotation for deep space research stations. They want permission to dock within the hour. Routine? Sarah almost laughed. Nothing about this was routine. Admiral Reeves had clearly been suspicious enough to send his best people to look around. Orders, ma'am. Sarah thought quickly. The station had multiple levels and dozens of research labs. Zara's habitat was well concealed, but a thorough inspection might uncover it. Even if they didn't find the child directly, the specialized equipment and modified life support systems would raise questions. Morrison, I need you to contact Dr. Yamazaki in Lab 7. Tell her to begin the emergency sterilization protocol for the fungal specimens immediately. Morrison looked confused but nodded. The emergency sterilization would flood that section of the station with intense heat and radiation, making it impossible to enter for at least 12 hours. Ma'am, if they want to inspect that lab, then they'll have to wait until the sterilization cycle is complete. That's standard protocol for hazardous biological research. As the intelligence ships approached, Sarah hurried to Zara's habitat. The child looked up at her approach, those large, dark eyes showing curiosity rather than fear. Hello, little one, Sarah said softly. We need to play a new game today, a very important game where you need to be very, very quiet. Zara tilted her head, processing the words with that uncanny intelligence. Then she nodded once, understanding the gravity of the situation in a way that no human child her age could have. Dr. Martinez had already prepared the emergency protocols. Zara's habitat would appear to be in full sterilization mode, with automated systems running biological containment procedures. Anyone trying to enter would be met with warning signs about lethal contamination levels. The forged records are in place, Dr. Martinez reported. As far as any inspection will show, we're studying a potentially dangerous strain of alien fungus that requires extreme containment measures. And Zara? She'll be safe in the inner chamber. The life support is independent, and the camouflage systems will make it appear to be just another piece of research equipment. 20 minutes later, Commander Voss of the UES Defiance materialized on the station's transporter pad, accompanied by a team of intelligence officers. Sarah met them with her best professional demeanor. Welcome to Echo 7, Commander. I hope your journey was pleasant. Voss was a lean man with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything around him. "Commander Chen, Admiral Reeves sends his regards. We're here to conduct a routine evaluation of your research progress. Of course, Dr. Martinez can give you a complete tour of our facilities." As they moved through the station, Sarah watched the intelligence officers carefully. They were good at their jobs, noting details and asking probing questions about the research projects. When they reached the sealed laboratory section, Dr. Martinez delivered her prepared explanation with convincing authority. "I'm afraid that area is off-limits during sterilization," she explained. "We had a containment breach with one of the fungal specimens yesterday. Standard protocol requires a full 48-hour decontamination cycle." Commander Voss studied the warning displays and environmental readings. Everything appeared normal for a biological hazard situation. What kind of specimens require such extreme measures? "Andromedon death spores," Dr. Martinez replied without hesitation. "Highly aggressive organism that can survive in almost any environment. If it ever got loose on a populated world, it could wipe out entire ecosystems within months." "Charming," Voss made a note on his data pad. "We'll need to review your containment protocols before we leave." "Absolutely." The inspection continued for 6 hours. Sarah maintained her composure throughout, answering questions about their research findings and mission objectives. Inside, her heart hammered against her ribs every time one of the officers lingered near the concealed entrance to Zara's habitat. As evening approached, Commander Voss gathered his team in the conference room for a final debriefing. Sarah and her crew waited in tense silence. "Your research appears to be proceeding according to specifications," Voss announced. "However, Admiral Reeves has expressed some concerns about security in this sector. We'll be leaving a small monitoring probe in the system to watch for dragon activity." Sarah nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. "We appreciate the additional security measures." After the intelligence ships departed, Sarah waited a full hour before making her way to Zara's habitat. When the concealment systems deactivated, she found the child sitting calmly in the center of the room, playing with a complex geometric puzzle she had constructed from spare components. "You were very brave today," Sarah said, kneeling beside her. Zara looked up and made a soft sound that Sarah had learned was her version of contentment. Then the child did something unexpected. She reached out and touched Sarah's hand, and for a brief moment, Sarah felt a strange sensation, as if Zara was trying to communicate directly with her mind. The feeling faded quickly, leaving Sarah wondering if she had imagined it. But something in Zara's eyes suggested that their bond was deeper than either of them fully understood. As Sarah tucked the child into her sleeping area, she realized that hiding Zara was becoming more than just a mission of mercy. The dragon child was teaching them things about intelligence, compassion, and the nature of consciousness that could revolutionize human understanding of the universe. But first, they had to survive long enough to learn those lessons. The monitoring probe orbiting outside meant that their every move would be watched. One mistake, one suspicious reading, an intelligence division would return with enough firepower to turn the station into space dust. Sarah settled into her own quarters, knowing that sleep would be elusive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new risks, and new opportunities to prove that some things were worth fighting for, even when the entire galaxy said you were wrong. In her dreams that night, Zara reached out across the void of space, her mind touching something vast and ancient. Her people were calling to her, wondering why their child's voice had gone silent. But they would have to wait. The small dragon had found something among the humans that her species had never expected to discover. She had found love. The explosion that rocked Research Station Echo 7 came without warning. Sarah was thrown from her chair as the lights flickered and emergency alarms began their distinctive wail. Through her quarter's viewport, she could see the twisted remains of what had been the monitoring probe, now scattered across the void in glowing fragments. "All hands to emergency stations," Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system. "We have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Dragon ships, ma'am, lots of them." Sarah ran through the corridors as the station shuddered under weapons fire. When she reached the command center, the tactical display showed a sight that made her blood run cold. 12 massive dragon vessels had formed an attack formation around Echo 7, their weapons already charging for another salvo. "They're not attacking randomly," Morrison reported, studying the sensor data. The targeting patterns suggest they're looking for something specific. Or someone, Dr. Martinez added grimly as she joined them on the bridge. Sarah's mind raced. There was only one reason dragons would come here in such force. Somehow, they had detected Zara's presence. The monitoring probe's destruction suggested they wanted to eliminate any human surveillance before making their move. Incoming transmission from the lead dragon vessel, Morrison announced. Put it through. The screen flickered, then filled with the imposing figure of an adult dragon. Even through the communication system, the alien's presence was intimidating. Its scales were a deep bronze color, and its eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and terrifyingly focused. When it spoke, the universal translator rendered its words in crisp, precise English. Human vessel, you hold what belongs to us. Return the child, and your deaths will be swift. Sarah stepped forward, meeting the dragon's gaze directly. I don't know what you're talking about. Do not test our patience, human. We know the youngling is aboard your station. Our mental bonds with our offspring cannot be severed by distance or deception. The admission hit Sarah like a physical blow. Mental bonds. Zara hadn't just been trying to communicate with her mind weeks ago, she had been reaching out to her own people. Every day they had hidden her, her family had known exactly where she was. If you know she's here, Sarah said carefully, then you also know she's been well cared for. She's safe, healthy, and protected. The dragon's expression shifted, showing something that might have been surprise. You acknowledge holding our child. I acknowledge saving a dying youngling from a destroyed ship. She would have died if we hadn't intervened. For several seconds, the dragon said nothing. Sarah could see other figures moving in the background of the transmission, the alien bridge bustling with activity as weapons systems remained locked on the station. You are the human who violated your species' mandate, the dragon finally said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Why? The simple question carried enormous weight. Sarah thought about all the reasons she could give: duty, compassion, curiosity. But in the end, there was only one truth that mattered. Because she's a child, Sarah said, and children deserve a chance to live. The dragon studied her for a long moment. You risk everything for offspring that is not your own. Your species is strange. Maybe, but we're not the ones who came here with 12 warships to reclaim one small child. Something that might have been amusement flickered across the alien's features. You make a fair point, human. I am Commander Thane of the vessel Starfare. The youngling you hold is my daughter. Sarah felt her world shift. Zara's father was speaking to her, and he was the commanding officer of what appeared to be a significant dragon fleet. The political implications were staggering. She's been asking for you, Sarah said quietly. In her own way, I think she's been trying to reach out across space. Dragon younglings maintain psychic connections with their family clusters until they reach maturity, Thane explained. My daughter's voice has been different since her rescue, calmer, less afraid. She's been loved, Dr. Martinez interjected, stepping into view, cared for as if she were our own. Thane's large eyes fixed on the doctor. You are the healer who tended her wounds. I am, and I can tell you that your daughter is remarkable. Her intelligence, her gentleness, her capacity for learning, she's extraordinary even by human standards. All dragon younglings possess such abilities, Thane replied. It is why your species' mandate calls for our extermination. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Sarah had always wondered about the origins of the dragon mandate, why command was so insistent that dragons be eliminated without exception. What do you mean? She asked. The genetic advantages we possess, the technological capabilities we've developed, the psychic abilities that allow us to communicate across vast distances. Your leaders fear that we will eventually surpass humanity entirely. Morrison leaned forward. But you've been attacking our colonies. Have we? Thane's voice carried a sharp edge. Show me evidence of a dragon ship initiating combat with human forces. Sarah thought back through decades of military reports, battle analyses, and intelligence briefings. In every case she could remember, dragons had been found at attack sites, but the actual initiation of combat had always been unclear. The reports always assumed dragon aggression, but the proof was often circumstantial. The colonies that were destroyed, she said slowly. We found dragon ships in those systems. Yes, because we were trying to evacuate the survivors. The statement hit the command center like a bomb blast. Sarah stared at the Dragon commander, her mind reeling through the implications. That's impossible, Morrison said. The casualty reports were accurate, Thane interrupted. Entire colonies were indeed destroyed, but not by Dragon forces. Then by who? Thane's expression grew grim. By the same entities that destroyed my daughter's ship. The same beings that your intelligence division has been secretly negotiating with for the past 5 years. The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Sarah felt like she was standing at the edge of an abyss, about to learn truths that would change everything she thought she knew about the war. Explain, she demanded. Your Admiral Reeves has been in contact with a species called the Harvesters. They consume organic matter on a planetary scale, strip mining entire worlds for their biological resources. In exchange for human cooperation in eliminating dragons, they promise to leave human colonies untouched. Dr. Martinez gasped. You're saying our own command has been orchestrating the destruction of colonies? Not orchestrating, allowing. The Harvesters attack dragon settlements and any human colonies that might harbor dragon refugees. Your forces arrive afterward, find dragon ships among the wreckage from our rescue attempts, and assume we were the aggressors. Sarah's legs felt weak. She sank into the nearest chair, trying to process the magnitude of what Thane was claiming. If true, it meant that humanity's military leaders had been complicit in genocide, trading dragon lives for false promises of human safety. Why should we believe you? Morrison asked, though his voice lacked conviction. Because, Thane said simply, in 3 hours, a harvester fleet will arrive at the coordinates your monitoring probe transmitted before we destroyed it. They believe this station contains valuable dragon genetic material. The tactical display suddenly came alive with new sensor readings. Morrison's face went pale as he studied the incoming data. Ma'am, I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is dropping out of hyperspace. Sarah looked at the display, then back at Thane's image. How do we know you didn't call them here? Because if I had wanted to retrieve my daughter by force, I would have come with one ship and overwhelming firepower. I brought a fleet because I hoped to convince you to join us against our common enemy. Join you. Commander Chen, you have proven that humans are capable of compassion, even toward those they have been taught to hate. Your species and mine face extinction if the Harvesters are allowed to continue their harvesting campaign. But together, our combined technologies and abilities might be enough to stop them. The station shook again, this time from proximity alarms as new ships entered the system. Sarah looked at the tactical display and saw vessels unlike anything in human or dragon databases. They were organic-looking, with flowing curves that suggested they had been grown rather than built. Harvester ships, Thane confirmed. 6 vessels, each capable of cracking a planet's crust. What do you propose? Sarah asked. Immediate evacuation of your station. My fleet will cover your retreat while we extract both my daughter and your research data. Then we retreat to Dragon Space, where we can plan our response to this threat. Morrison was already running calculations. Ma'am, those harvester ships outmass our entire fleet, if Commander Thane is telling the truth about their capabilities. We don't have a choice, Sarah interrupted. She turned to face Thane's image. What guarantees do we have that you won't simply eliminate us once you have your daughter back? None beyond my word as a father who is grateful that strangers chose to save his child's life. It wasn't much to base such a momentous decision on, but Sarah found herself believing the Dragon commander. There was something in his manner, a sincerity that was hard to fake across species barriers. Dr. Martinez, how quickly can you prepare Zara for transport? 10 minutes, maybe 15. Morrison, begin emergency evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods immediately. As the station erupted into controlled chaos, Sarah made her way to Zara's habitat. The child was standing at the observation window, watching the dragon ships with obvious excitement. When Sarah entered, Zara turned and made a complex series of sounds that the translation system rendered as, "Family comes, danger follows." "Yes, little one, your father is here." Zara approached Sarah and placed one small hand against the human's cheek. This time the mental contact was clear and unmistakable. Images flowed between them, memories of gentle care, gratitude for salvation, and something else. Warning. The child was trying to tell her something important about the approaching harvester ships, something that even her father didn't know. The mental images were confusing, but Sarah caught fragments of meaning. Hidden weapons, false negotiation, planned betrayal. "We need to go," Dr. Martinez announced as she entered with emergency medical supplies. "The harvesters are demanding immediate surrender of the station." As they prepared to transport Zara to her father's ship, Sarah realized that rescuing one dragon child had set in motion events that would determine the fate of two species. The war she had known was ending, but a much larger and more dangerous conflict was just beginning. The little girl who had whimpered in fear aboard a destroyed ship had become the key to humanity's survival. And Sarah Chen, who had chosen compassion over duty, was about to discover that some decisions change the course of history itself. The harvester ships began their approach, and the real war was about to begin. The transport beam materialized Sarah, Dr. Martinez, and Zara aboard the Dragon vessel Starfire, just as the first harvester weapons lit up the void where Research Station Echo 7 had been. The Dragon ship's bridge was a marvel of organic architecture, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Commander Thane stood waiting for them, his massive form somehow less intimidating now that Sarah understood he was simply a father seeking his child. When Zara saw him, she made a musical sound of pure joy and ran to him on unsteady legs. The reunion was beautiful in its simplicity. Thane knelt and gathered his daughter into his arms, his enormous claws gentle as flower petals as he held her. The two dragons touched foreheads, and Sarah could sense a mental communication flowing between them that was far deeper than words. "She tells me of your kindness," Thane said to Sarah, his voice thick with emotion. "She says you sang to her when she had nightmares." "Human lullabies," Sarah replied, watching the tender scene. "They seem to help. Dragon younglings often suffer night terrors when separated from their family cluster. That you found a way to comfort her speaks well of your species' potential." The ship shuddered as harvester weapons found their range. Through the bridge's organic viewports, Sarah could see the enemy vessels closing in. Up close, they were even more disturbing than the long-range scans had suggested. The ships appeared to be alive, with surfaces that rippled and flexed like muscle tissue. "Status report," Thane ordered his bridge crew, still holding Zara protectively. "6 harvester vessels confirmed," his tactical officer reported. "They're demanding immediate surrender and transfer of all biological specimens aboard our ships." "And our fleet status?" "All vessels prepared for combat, Commander. However, intelligence indicates these particular harvester ships are equipped with the new biodisruptor weapons." Thane's expression grew grim. "The weapons that turn our own organic technology against us." Sarah stepped forward. "What exactly are biodisruptors?" "Harvester technology designed specifically to combat dragon vessels," Thane explained. "Our ships are partially biological, grown rather than built. Biodisruptors can corrupt our ships' living systems, turning them into weapons against us." Dr. Martinez was studying readings on a nearby console. "That's why they wanted dragon genetic material. They've been developing species-specific bioweapons. And with human cooperation, they've had access to captured dragon technology to perfect their systems," Thane added bitterly. Zara suddenly stiffened in her father's arms, her young face scrunched in concentration. She began making rapid, complex sounds that caused every dragon on the bridge to turn and stare. "What is she saying?" Sarah asked. Thane's expression shifted to amazement. "She's describing the internal structure of the harvester ships, weaknesses in their biodisruptor systems." "How could she possibly know that?" "Dragon younglings possess abilities that fade as we mature," Thane explained. "Enhanced empathy, the ability to sense life patterns at a distance, natural understanding of biological systems. My daughter has been studying the harvester ship since they arrived." On the tactical display, the enemy vessels continued their approach. Sarah counted 6 massive bioships, each easily twice the size of the largest dragon vessel. The human escape pods from Echo 7 were scattered throughout the system, their occupants helpless witnesses to the coming battle. "Thane," Sarah said urgently, "if we're going to fight these things, we need to work together. dragon technology combined with human tactical knowledge. Agreed, but first we must ensure the survival of the younglings. Thane gestured to his communications officer. Open a channel to all ships. Begin Project Sanctuary. As the dragon fleet began moving into formation, Sarah watched in fascination as several of the vessels seemed to reshape themselves. Sections of their hulls flowed like liquid, reconfiguring into protective arrangements around the smaller ships carrying dragon children. Your entire species thinks about offspring first, Sarah observed. As should yours, Thane replied pointedly. Zara was still making her analytical sounds, her small hands moving in complex patterns as she described what only she could sense. Dr. Martinez was recording everything, her medical training helping her recognize patterns in the child's observations. She's identifying the biodisruptor control nodes, Martinez reported. If I'm understanding correctly, they're located in the forward sections of each harvester ship, protected by redundant biological barriers. Could we target those nodes specifically? Sarah asked. Thane studied the tactical display. Dragon weapons aren't precise enough for such targeting. Our philosophy has always been overwhelming force rather than surgical strikes. But human weapons are designed for precision targeting, Sarah said, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. What if we combined your raw firepower with our targeting systems? That would require unprecedented coordination between our species. Then maybe it's time for unprecedented cooperation. The first harvester attack came without warning. Biodisruptor beams lanced across space, striking the outermost dragon vessels. Sarah watched in horror as one of the ships began to writhe and contort, its living hull turning against its own crew. Starfare to all vessels, Thane commanded. Implement defensive pattern Delta, protect the younglings at all costs. The dragon fleet moved with fluid grace, their ships dancing through space in patterns that seemed choreographed. But even as they maneuvered, more biodisruptor beams found their targets. Two more dragon ships began to suffer the horrifying effects of having their own biology weaponized against them. They're losing, Sarah said with growing alarm. Zara suddenly pulled away from her father and ran to Sarah, grabbing the human's hand and pulling her toward a console. The child's mental touch flooded Sarah's mind with images, tactical formations, weapon trajectories, weak points in the harvester formation that only enhanced empathy could detect. She's trying to show me something, Sarah announced. Their formation has vulnerabilities, but we need to coordinate our attack perfectly. Human weapons cannot penetrate harvester defenses, Thane pointed out. They don't have to. Your ships can provide the heavy firepower, but they need human targeting data to hit the biodisruptor nodes precisely. Dr. Martinez suddenly looked up from her readings. There's something else. Zara isn't just reading the harvester ships, she's reading the beings inside them. She knows how they think, how they make tactical decisions. Thane stared at his daughter with new understanding. Enhanced empathy at this level hasn't been recorded in dragon history. She may be unique. Which means she might be the key to defeating them, Sarah realized. As another dragon ship succumbed to biodisruptor corruption, Sarah made a decision that would have seemed impossible weeks ago. Thane, I need to interface with your ship's targeting systems. If Zara can guide our attacks through me, we might be able to turn this around. The neural interface could be dangerous for a human mind. Not as dangerous as losing this battle. Thane hesitated for only a moment before leading Sarah to the ship's organic control center. The interface resembled a living plant more than technology, with tendrils that moved with obvious intelligence. This will allow you to share consciousness with the ship itself, Thane explained. The connection will be intense. Sarah placed her hands on the bioneural interface and gasped as the connection formed. Suddenly, she could feel the starfare as if it were her own body. The ship's weapons, shields, and sensors became extensions of her awareness. Zara approached and placed her small hand over Sarah's. Immediately, the child's enhanced perceptions flowed through the connection. Sarah could sense the harvester ships not just as objects in space, but as living entities with thoughts, intentions, and weaknesses. I can feel them, Sarah whispered. They're not just ships, they're creatures, living beings that have been enslaved by something else. Through Zara's empathic link, Sarah sensed the true horror of the harvesters. The bioships were actually conquered species, entire civilizations that had been absorbed and repurposed into living weapons. The crews weren't operating the ships. They were parasitic entities controlling the consumed races. The biodisruptor nodes, Sarah announced, her voice carrying new urgency. They're not just weapon systems, they're pain centers. The parasites are torturing the ship beings into compliance. If we could disrupt those nodes, Dr. Martinez suggested, we might free the ships from their parasitic controllers. It's not enough to destroy the nodes, Sarah said, Zara's insights flowing through her. We need to overload them with contradictory signals, cause feedback that will force the parasites to abandon their hosts. Thane was already coordinating with his fleet. All ships prepare for coordinated strike pattern, human targeting data incoming. Through the bioneural interface, Sarah could feel the entire dragon fleet as if it were a single organism. She guided their weapons with unprecedented precision, using Zara's empathic readings to identify the exact moment when each biodisruptor node was most vulnerable. The coordinated attack was beautiful and terrible. Dragon energy weapons, guided by human precision and dragon child empathy, struck simultaneously at all 6 harvester vessels. But instead of destroying the biodisruptor nodes, Sarah triggered feedback cascades that sent waves of conflicting signals throughout the parasitic control systems. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The harvester ships began convulsing, their organic hulls rippling with internal conflict. Through Zara's enhanced senses, Sarah could feel the parasitic controllers being forced to abandon their hosts as the feedback made their neural connections unbearable. One by one, the 6 ships stopped their attacks and began transmitting on peaceful frequencies. The beings that had been enslaved for centuries were finally free, and their first act was to thank their liberators. Incredible, Thane breathed as the crisis ended. You didn't destroy them, you saved them. Sarah disconnected from the bioneural interface, her mind reeling from the experience. Zara immediately hugged her, the child's happiness radiating through their mental link. The younglings showed us a different way, Sarah said. Instead of fighting our enemies, we freed them from their oppressors. Through the aftermath of the battle, Sarah realized that everything had changed. The war between humans and dragons was revealed as a manipulation by the true enemy. The harvester parasites had been using both species as tools in their conquest of the galaxy. But now, for the first time, humans and dragons had fought together as allies. And they had won not through superior firepower, but through compassion and understanding. Zara looked up at Sarah with those large, intelligent eyes and made a sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of hope, of new possibilities, of a future where different species could work together instead of destroying each other. The little dragon child who had been saved from a burning ship had just saved 2 civilizations, and she was only getting started. 6 months after the Battle of Echo 7, Sarah stood in the gardens of New Harmony, the first joint human-dragon colony established in the former neutral zone. The sight before her would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Human children and young dragons playing together, their laughter echoing across carefully tended landscapes that combined earth flowers with crystalline dragon sculptures. Zara had grown remarkably in those months, now standing as tall as a human 10-year-old despite being less than a year old. Her scales had deepened to a rich emerald color, and her intelligence had expanded beyond what anyone had thought possible for either species. The integration reports are remarkable, Dr. Martinez said, joining Sarah on the observation terrace. Not a single incident of interspecies conflict among the children. They're learning from each other at unprecedented rates. Sarah smiled as she watched Zara teaching a group of human children how to manipulate the crystalline structures that dragons used for complex calculations. The human children were adapting to the 3-dimensional mathematics with surprising ease, while dragon younglings were mastering human languages and artistic expression. "Any word from Earth?" Sarah asked. Dr. Martinez's expression grew more serious. The tribunal concluded yesterday. Admiral Reeves and 6 other Intelligence Division officers were convicted of crimes against sentient species. The evidence we provided about the Harvester conspiracy was overwhelming. And the mandate. Officially rescinded, the new doctrine emphasizes first contact protocols and peaceful resolution of interspecies conflicts. Martinez paused. They're calling it the Chen Protocol. Sarah felt a mix of pride and embarrassment. Having a first contact procedure named after her was an honor she had never expected. What about the other colonies? Are they accepting the new alliance? Most are. The economic benefits of Dragon technology sharing have been persuasive. Terraforming projects that would have taken decades can now be completed in months with Dragon bioengineering assistance. Through the garden paths below, Sarah could see adult humans and dragons working together on various projects. The cooperation wasn't always smooth, cultural differences ran deep, but it was working. Mutual respect was growing from shared necessity and genuine friendship. "Commander Chen," a familiar voice called from behind her. Sarah turned to see Thane approaching, his massive form somehow less intimidating in the peaceful setting of the colony. "Just Sarah now," she corrected gently. "I'm still getting used to civilian life." "As am I," Thane admitted, "though I suspect our retirement from military service may be temporary." "What do you mean?" Thane activated a holographic display showing star charts. "Our scouts have been mapping the galaxy more thoroughly since the Alliance formed. What we've discovered is concerning." Sarah studied the display, noting dozens of systems marked with warning symbols. "More harvester activity." "Much more. The entities we freed from the bioships have provided intelligence about the true scope of the parasite invasion. They control approximately 30% of the galaxy's inhabited systems." Dr. Martinez leaned forward to examine the data. "That's hundreds of billions of sentient beings under parasitic control." "Exactly. Our victory at Echo 7 was significant, but it was also just the first battle in a much larger war." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. "What are you proposing?" "A joint expeditionary force. Human strategic thinking combined with Dragon technology and the freed bioships as allies. We've proven that the parasites can be defeated, but it will require unprecedented cooperation." "And Zara?" Sarah asked, watching the young dragon who had become like a daughter to her. "Zara will be essential," Thane said seriously. "Her empathic abilities continue to develop in unique ways. She can identify parasitic influence across vast distances and help coordinate liberation efforts." As if sensing she was being discussed, Zara looked up from her teaching and waved at the adults. Her mental touch brushed against Sarah's consciousness, carrying impressions of excitement and determination. The child understood the scope of what lay ahead and was eager to help. "She's still so young," Sarah said with concern. "By human standards, yes, but dragon younglings mature rapidly when faced with necessity. My daughter has already contributed more to interspecies cooperation than most adults achieve in a lifetime." A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The holographic display shifted to show President Martinez of the United Earth Government alongside High Counselor Vex of the Dragon Collective. "Sarah," President Martinez began, "I hope we're not interrupting your well-deserved rest." "Not at all, Madam President. We have a situation that requires your unique expertise. 3 days ago, we received a distress signal from the Andromeda system. The message was unusual." High Counselor Vex, whose scales were an ancient silver gray, leaned forward. "The transmission was sent using hybrid technology, part human communication protocols, part dragon bio-neural networking. Someone in Andromeda has successfully combined our technologies without our knowledge." "That should be impossible," Dr. Martinez interjected. "The integration requirements are incredibly complex." "Unless," Thane said thoughtfully, "they had help from someone who understands both technologies intimately." Sarah felt a chill of understanding. "You think it's other children, human and dragon younglings working together." "We believe an entire colony ship carrying mixed families was captured by the parasites 6 months ago," President Martinez explained. "If they've managed to retain enough freedom to send a distress signal, they could be developing resistance techniques we haven't thought of," Sarah finished. Zara suddenly appeared at Sarah's side, having approached with the silent grace that all dragons possessed. The young one's eyes were wide with urgency as she began making rapid, complex sounds. "She says the children in Andromeda are calling to her," Thane translated. "They've been trying to establish contact for days." Sarah knelt beside Zara, accepting the child's mental touch. Images flooded her consciousness. a hidden colony where human and dragon children worked together in secret, developing new technologies while their parents remained under parasitic control. The younglings had created a resistance network spanning multiple worlds, using their combined abilities to stay one step ahead of their captors. "They're not just surviving," Sarah announced with growing excitement. "They're fighting back, and they want our help to free their parents." "It could be a trap," Dr. Martinez warned. "The parasites might be using the children to lure us into an ambush." "Or," Sarah said, standing with new resolve, "it could be the key to liberating entire systems at once. If the children have found ways to resist parasitic control, their techniques could be replicated throughout the galaxy." President Martinez nodded slowly. "We're authorizing a joint rescue mission, your choice of personnel and resources." "How soon can we launch?" Sarah asked. "The new ship Unity is completing its trials now," High Counselor Vex replied. "It's the first vessel designed from the ground up as a joint human-dragon project. Hybrid technology, mixed crew, integrated command systems." Thane smiled, showing teeth that were sharp but somehow comforting. "My daughter has been asking when she could see the stars again." "This mission could be dangerous," Sarah warned. "All the most important missions are dangerous," Zara said clearly, her voice carrying the weight of someone far older than her apparent age. It was the first time she had spoken in perfect English, and the words carried absolute conviction. 2 weeks later, the Unity dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Andromeda system. The ship was a marvel of cooperative engineering, its hull incorporating both human durability and dragon organic adaptability. The bridge featured stations designed for both species, with bioneural interfaces allowing seamless communication between human and dragon crew members. Sarah stood at the captain's station, watching the long-range sensors map the system ahead. Beside her, Thane monitored dragon biodetection systems, while Zara interfaced directly with the ship's empathic sensors. "I'm detecting the hidden colony," Zara announced, her young voice carrying absolute confidence. "Third moon of the gas giant. The children are there and they're excited." "Any sign of harvester ships?" Sarah asked. "Several biovessels in orbit around the main colony world," Thane reported. "But their movement patterns suggest they're not aware of the children's hidden base." Dr. Martinez, now serving as the mission's xenobiologist, studied the readings with fascination. "The energy signatures from the hidden base are unlike anything we've seen. They're using technology that reads as both human and dragon, but somehow more efficient than either." "The next generation is teaching us again," Sarah observed with pride. As the Unity approached the hidden moon base, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that day she chose to save a dying dragon child. That single decision had led to the end of an unjust war, the beginning of an unprecedented alliance, and now the start of a campaign to liberate the galaxy from an ancient evil. But more than that, it had proven that the best of humanity and dragonkind could emerge when they chose compassion over fear, understanding over prejudice, and cooperation over conflict. Zara looked up at her with those brilliant, intelligent eyes and made a sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of gratitude, of love, and of absolute confidence in their shared future. The dragon child who had been saved by breaking every rule was now leading the mission to save countless others. And Sarah Chen, the human who had chosen love over duty, was proud to follow her daughter into whatever challenges lay ahead. In the depths of space, other children waited for rescue, their combined ingenuity and hope representing the best possible future for two species learning to become one family. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but it was also full of possibilities that neither humans nor dragons could achieve alone. The real adventure was just beginning, and this time they would face it together.